The class of 1999 vanished on their graduation trip. 22 years later, a chilling discovery resurfaces. Jerry Madsen realized this as he turned onto Forest Road 79 that early June morning. Jerry was 71 years old, a retired truck mechanic, and his bones ached more than his heart. After his wife died in 2017, he found peace in hiking old logging trails alone. The deeper he went into Oregon's Rogue River Siskiyou wilderness, the better. The trees never lied, and the forest never asked questions. But on June 3, 2021, the forest gave him a gift. That morning, Jerry turned onto a trail he had never tried before, narrower, more overgrown. About a mile in, he came upon something yellow, glowing strange against the moss and fir trees. At first he thought it was a hunter's tarp, perhaps a long-forgotten ranger station. Then he saw the window. The structure was half buried under decades of broken branches and thick Oregon ivy. A school bus. The sides were rusted and collapsed in places. A door was open like a jaw had been ripped open. He hesitated. The air had changed. Not colder, but quieter. The birds weren't singing here. He stepped inside. The stench hit him, first mold and chemicals. He pulled the bandana over his mouth and moved deeper into the bus. His backpack was still on the seat. The cassette player was warped by time. The pages of his yearbook were stuck together with black mold. In the back seat, a pile of torn clothes, and underneath white bones. He backed away, confused. His hands shook as he dialed 911. He didn't say much. Just, "You should bring the forensics team. They are." For 22 years, the story of the missing seniors from Forest Grove High School had lived on as myth, urban legend, campfire tale. 27 students, one substitute driver, one teacher, gone. Vanished on their graduation camping trip to the Rogue River wilderness. No calls, no survivors, no vehicle. Just an empty parking lot where the bus had once been. Some said it was a cult. Others claimed a landslide, a freak flood, or even alien abduction. But the official record labeled it simply Incident 372B Unsolved Group Disappearance. Case closed. Until Jerry Madsen found bus number 57. The scene was cordoned off within hours. News vans showed up the next morning. Helicopters buzzed overhead, and the remains were carefully extracted from the forest's grip. Inside the bus, investigators found 17 partial remains, later confirmed to be students. Personal effects matching those reported missing in 1999. Hand-drawn sketches signed with the initials E.T. No driver's log, no radio, and no trace of the remaining 9 students or 2 adults. Most disturbing were the sketches. Figures in robes, circles of fire in the forest, a bus surrounded by towering, faceless silhouettes, and one final image, a crude drawing of the bus itself with a mask behind the steering wheel. The initials matched Emily Tran, a quiet student known for her sketchbook and tendency to drift at the edges of groups. Her body was not found. Some of the sketches appeared to depict moments no one could have witnessed: students in terror shapes in the trees, a hand pressed to the inside of a window. Investigators debated whether the drawings were made before the trip or during their final days. Handwriting analysts confirmed they were likely hers, dated between May 27th and June 6, 1999. But that raised another question. How were they still legible after 22 years in an Oregon forest? Back in 1999, only one strange message had come through. Rachel McClure's mother received it at 6:41 p.m., the day of the disappearance. A voice, Rachel's laughing, breathless. Then a male voice turned that off, then static, and silence. The message was dismissed then as a prank, poor signal, a bad recording. But when investigators pulled the call log again in 2021, they found something they missed the first time. The message lasted exactly 3 minutes and 33 seconds. The last 3 minutes were nothing but humming, like someone holding a tone, not mechanical, not feedback. A human hum, low, constant, intentional. Of the 27 students and 2 adults, only 17 sets of remains were confirmed inside the bus. The driver, Mr. Griggs, was not among them. Neither was Ms. Crawford, the chaperone, nor was Emily Tran. The bus showed no signs of collision or weather damage. There was no path wide enough for it to have reached that part of the forest without road infrastructure. No tire marks, no drag marks, no other disturbances. It was as if the forest had simply grown up around it, or as if the bus had appeared there untouched by time. A week after the discovery, one of the victim's parents received an envelope. No return address. Postmarked locally. Inside a torn piece of notebook paper. A few words in jagged handwriting. "We made it. Please stop looking." Forensics said the ink was recent. The paper too fresh to be from 1999. And yet the handwriting was almost identical to Trevor Callahan's. One of the students still unaccounted for. Almost. Experts couldn't agree. But one cryptographer found something else. Every third letter, when isolated, spelled a phrase, "they wait beneath." After the media frenzy faded, the forest reclaimed the land. The bus was removed, the site cleaned the case, reclassified as active. But Jerry Madsen, the man who found the bus, refused to return to the woods. "That place isn't right," he told a local reporter. "It wasn't just death. It was like walking into something that had been waiting, hungry." He never walked the forest again. Instead, he left one note behind on his kitchen counter when he moved to Arizona in July. "The birds didn't sing. That's how I knew." On June 10th, exactly 1 week after the bus was discovered, a man walked into the Bend Police Department at 7:48 a.m. He was disheveled, barefoot, wearing a tattered jacket with sleeves too short for his frame. He looked older than his years, face hollow, and pale hair overgrown and knotted. He gave his name as Jared Fields, the same name as one of the missing seniors from Forest Grove High. At first, officers believed he was a mentally ill vagrant, but when they ran his fingerprints still on file from a juvenile record in the late 90s, the system matched. DNA tests conducted in the following hours confirmed it. He was Jared Fields, and he was very much alive. Sergeant Megan Wells led the interview. A practical woman in her 60s, she'd worked the original case as a rookie and still remembered the memorial services. Now she watched a grown man speak in fragments in fear. "I was never supposed to come back," Jared said, eyes darting to corners of the room. "They said we had to stay, that if anyone left, the others would be taken." He hadn't spoken to anyone in years. He'd lived off-grid, hiding in cabins and caves, afraid to be tracked. He'd seen the news about the bus on a gas station TV and knew he had to come forward. "Something followed us," he said. "It doesn't let go." When asked about the other missing students, Jared shook his head. "I don't know who made it. I don't know who stayed. After the bus broke down, it all went wrong." The bus had broken down deep in the forest on a stretch of road not found on any map. The driver, Mr. Griggs, had gone to get help, but he never came back. They camped nearby, built fires, waited. Days passed. No signal, no way back. Then the strangers came. They called themselves the Quiet Choir, Jared whispered. They wore gray, no faces, just cloth where skin should be. According to Jared, they offered food, water, shelter, claimed to be part of an off-grid sanctuary, an intentional community hidden in the forest. They said we had been chosen, that we were free now, but there were rules. Things you couldn't say, things you couldn't remember. The students were split. Some accepted it. Others resisted. And one by one, the ones who fought back disappeared. Jared spoke of Emily last. She had been quiet, observant. She drew everything. She saw them before we did, he said. Said she dreamed about the forest, that it had a face. She stopped speaking days before she vanished. Her sketchbook, always with her, was last seen in Jared's tent. When the choir found out she'd drawn their faces, things turned violent. She wasn't taken like the others. She walked into the woods, smiling like she was going home. Jared produced a journal he'd kept hidden since 1999, a tattered notebook with water damage, torn pages, and frantic handwriting. Some entries were coherent. Others descended into scribbled symbols and loops. One passage read, "They hum when they sleep. The sound is inside your chest. It keeps time." Another entry, "I marked the trees. They unmarked them. I bled into bark. They fed on it." And finally, Emily knew. She left the door open. I shut it behind me. The last page was blank, except for one word written in large, shaky script beneath. Psychologists labeled Jared delusional, possibly suffering from prolonged trauma and hallucinations brought on by isolation. But he was physically healthy. His injuries were old. His recollection, while fragmented, remained consistent. A forensic artist recreated one of the figures in gray based on his descriptions. When shown the sketch, multiple parents of the victims said it resembled something their children had drawn before the trip. One mother recalled her son Jonah drawing stick figures with blank ovals for heads. He called them the Watchers, she whispered. Why did Jared survive? What happened to the other missing students, and what, if anything, was the quiet choir? The FBI became involved. Jared was placed in protective custody. He asked for one thing: to be moved far from the woods. I hear them at night, even now. A memorial was held again that summer, this time for the 17 confirmed remains. But the plaque for the class of 1999 still listed 27 names, and 9 were still missing. Jared did not attend the service. He sent a letter, which was read aloud by Sergeant Wells. They said no one would remember us, that we'd vanish like smoke. But we were more than that. We had names, we had stories. Tell them, even if it hurts. 3 weeks after Jared Fields emerged from the past like a broken relic, a small team from the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit arrived in Oregon. Led by Agent Thomas Albrecht, a stoic man in his late 60s, known for cracking complex cult-related cases, the team took over the investigation from local authorities. Albrecht didn't believe in the supernatural, but he respected myth, because sometimes he said myth was the only language trauma knew how to speak. Their first mission retraced Jared's possible path from the bus to safety. He had mentioned markers, trees with carving symbols burned into bark. The team hoped to follow those faint breadcrumbs. But what they found was far stranger. Roughly 8 miles southeast of the bus site, the team discovered a clearing. At its center stood a ring of 12 trees, all charred, but only on the inside. Their outer bark was untouched, preserved, but inside the trunks were hollowed out as if fire had burned from the core outward. There were no scorch marks on the ground, no evidence of lightning, and inside the hollow trees, symbols were etched into the ash, geometric, recursive. They didn't match any known runes, but one linguist later noted similarities to Neolithic cave carvings found in Tibet and Mongolia. On the northernmost tree, a single phrase was carved into solid wood: "When the humming stops, they walk." Locals who'd lived near the Siskiyou for generations began sharing stories. One man, Thomas Lee, a 92-year-old retired logger, claimed he'd once seen a line of people in gray robes walking single file through the trees at dusk in the summer of 1999. They didn't talk, didn't look around, just moved, like ghosts but too heavy. The ground bent beneath them. Another woman, Esther Dunn, a tribal elder of the Takelma people, warned the investigators not to go looking too deep. There are places in that forest where the old breath still lives, she said. Things from before stories. We buried songs there, and things that learned how to wear our faces. She referred to them as the choir beneath. Among the personal effects found in the bus was a broken cassette tape. Investigators hadn't initially recovered audio from it, but an expert in audio forensics, Maya Lin, managed to clean the signal using analog reconstruction. What played chilled even the most seasoned agents. The first 30 seconds featured soft footsteps, likely Emily's, then faint humming, a low harmonic vibration, steady and unnatural. Then Emily's voice, "They don't eat. They remember. They remember everything." More humming. Then her whisper strained, "They live beneath, where no roots go. They built rooms under the mountain, and they are waiting for something to open." The tape ends with a single high-pitched frequency. And silence. Agent Albrecht became fixated on Mount Kalapuya, a remote peak northwest of the Rogue River. The mountain was not particularly high, but it had long been associated with disappearances and strange weather patterns. Several local guides refused to take the team there. One old ranger, Will Daniels, agreed. He'd heard of the choir too. In 1986, a group of geology students vanished during a cave mapping expedition. Their last radio transmission ended mid-sentence. "Found a second shaft. It's not on the weight. Do you hear the..." Nothing followed. Will took the team 2/3 up the mountain before stopping cold. "This is where the forest ends," he said. "They don't let you go farther." That night, cameras left at the site recorded only 3 hours before going dark. The last image showed movement, multiple figures, robed, faceless, and the humming. Always the humming. Back in town, Sergeant Wells received another envelope, postmarked from a nearby city. Inside was a single page. "You should have left the dead in the trees," and a Polaroid. It showed the burned grove, recent. In the photo's lower corner was the blurry image of a girl with long black hair. Emily Tran, unaged, smiling. Mount Kalapuya, July 19, 2021. A tactical team was airlifted to a rocky shelf just below the summit, one of the few places still accessible. Accompanied by Agent Albrecht and 3 FBI analysts, the team's objective was simple: find the cavern system mentioned in Jared's account and corroborated by the tape Emily left behind. They brought thermal scanners, mapping drones, satellite transponders, and quietly they carried small religious charms, crosses, totems, prayer cloths, donated by loved ones of the lost students. Not protocol, but none protested. By mid-morning, one of the drones detected an unnatural heat sink beneath the western face of the mountain. A fissure nearly sealed by landslides, but just wide enough for human passage. The air flowing from it was oddly warm. As the team descended into the darkness, Jared's warning rang in Albrecht's ears. They built rooms under the mountain. The passage sloped for nearly 200 feet, narrow and twisting. At intervals, the walls bore strange carvings marks similar to those found in the burned grove. Then the team reached a large chamber. At first glance, it resembled a sanctuary or temple. Rough-hewn steps formed an amphitheater around a shallow pit. In the center, a raised stone slab etched with symbols, and on every wall masks, hundreds of them. Human-sized, featureless, each turned toward the slab. In the silence, a faint vibration could be felt through boots and bones alike. A subsonic thrum, not heard but felt, the choir. They called it the listening room. Behind the altar, Albrecht found something chilling, a mask unlike the others. It was cracked, and inside it, strands of human hair. Black, long. A DNA test conducted later confirmed what they feared. The hair belonged to Emily Tran, but there was no body. Nearby, a crude drawing was etched into stone, a group of masked figures encircling a girl who stood barefoot, holding a flame in her palms. Beneath it, the inscription, "The one who remembers us, the flame that speaks." Hours after leaving the chamber, as the team camped just inside the fissure entrance, their radios flared with static. Then a voice, weak, familiar. "Jared, I told you not to open it." Albrecht tried to respond. Nothing. The radios died. All batteries, flashlights, drones, phones drained simultaneously. Then in the forest outside, the humming returned. It didn't fade until dawn. The next morning, Albrecht received an encrypted file from Jared. He'd gone dark again, but had left one final recording. They never wanted to be remembered. That's why they chose the forgotten, the students. No one asked about the quiet ones, the broken ones. We were their chorus, each voice feeding the song, each name another note. Emily wasn't taken. She became part of them. Not by force, she chose. Because she believed memory could survive. Even underground, you found the room. That was the first verse. But there are more. So many more. Inside Emily's old sketchbook, recovered from the bus weeks earlier, analysts found hidden overlays maps, etched in charcoal beneath drawings. When enhanced under UV light, the pages revealed a network of caverns, running not just under Mount Kalapuya, but stretching east toward other mountain ranges. One branch extended toward Wyoming, another beneath the Sierra Nevada. The map was labeled with a single word, choir. Back at FBI headquarters, one analyst reviewing the Emily tape isolated the final frequency. It wasn't a frequency at all. It was data. A digital pattern coordinates timestamps and a short encoded phrase in binary, remember us, or become us. That same night, 3 more Polaroids were sent to the Bend Police Department. One of the burned grove, one of the chamber, and one of a group of students dressed in robes standing at the edge of the mountain. Their faces were obscured by masks, but one girl at the front stood unmasked, her eyes looking directly into the lens. Emily Tran, smiling. The name appeared again, choir, this time burned into the inside of a man's thigh. August 2nd, 2021. A lone hiker was found wandering near the southern edge of Siskiyou National Forest, dehydrated and sunburned, muttering prayers in Latin and an unknown dialect. He wore a threadbare suit jacket, no shoes, and clutched a blackened book made of handmade paper. His name Richard Everston, last seen in 2004, a doctoral student researching acoustic anomalies in natural caverns. Like Jared, he had been presumed dead. Inside the book, Everston had written in both English and symbols matching those found in the listening room. Some pages were stained with blood, others were burned at the edges. One legible passage read, "There are no gods here, only echoes. They feed on memory. They wear the faces of those we love to keep us close. The choir sings not to call something forth, but to keep something asleep." Another note written shakily on torn parchment, Emily holds the archive. She is not lost. She is the librarian. Using Everston's sketches and descriptions, the FBI identified a possible second chamber. Beneath a lake bed 2 miles from Mount Kalapuya, ground-penetrating radar revealed an unnatural cavity square, symmetrical, lined with what appeared to be shelving. They called it the archive. On August 11th, a team descended through a submerged shaft. What they found defied explanation. Dozens of clay tablets sealed in jars, photographs faded nearly to shadow, recordings stored on wax cylinders. The items spanned decades, perhaps centuries, and all had one trait in common: they featured people who had once vanished without a trace, including a faded photo of the class of 1999, standing in a forest clearing, not unlike the burned grove, but with no masks, just smiles. Emily was in the center. The archive had no airflow. Yet as agents cataloged the items, they reported a low whispering, persistent like radio static. One agent specialist, Rourke, wandered from the group. When found hours later, she was sketching symbols on the walls in charcoal and humming. When questioned, she responded with a single phrase: "It's not remembering that gets you taken, it's forgetting." She was removed from the investigation. A cylinder recording marked ET3 was recovered and restored. It contained Emily's voice, older now. Her tone was calm, authoritative. "This is not a warning, it is a record. We are not dead, we are curators. We guard what the world loses, but memory is fragile. When a name fades, so does the thread. When you forget us, we become them. But if you remember even one of us, we remain." That night, tremors shook Mount Kalapuya. A fissure appeared along the ridge, shaped exactly like the symbol drawn in Emily's sketchbook. The mountain groaned for hours, then silence. Infrared scans the next morning showed heat trails leading from the archive site to a dozen new locations across the Pacific Northwest, all marked choir, and then the last Polaroid arrived. This one wasn't mailed. It was left on Agent Albrecht's pillow, a shot of the FBI evidence locker, empty shelves, and on the wall, the library is open. August 14th, 2021, silence. The humming that haunted investigators for weeks vanished without warning. No static, no vibration, just a crushing absence as if the forest were holding its breath. Agent Thomas Albrecht sat alone in the mobile command trailer, staring at the final Polaroid. The locker, the message, the library is open. He hadn't slept in 3 days. He scribbled a note to himself. If the library is open, what is it lending? That same morning, 3 hikers in Nevada reported seeing a girl wandering barefoot near the Ruby Mountains. She wore a faded jacket with a Forest Grove High School patch. She gave no name, but she whispered something over and over, "Don't let the melody stop." She was taken into protective custody. A week later, DNA confirmed what seemed impossible. Emily Tran, aged only 2 years, her biology had barely changed. When questioned, she only said, "I've only been gone a week." But her drawings, when given paper, told another story. They showed the bus, the archive, the chamber, a map of every choir site across the Northwest, and a new one farther east, marked with a spiral of eyes. September 3rd, 2021. A private expedition funded by an anonymous donor began digging near that site, a plateau in Idaho's Sawtooth Range. 6 hours in, the team unearthed stone tablets, not ancient, new, but etched with names, dozens of them, hundreds, all matching missing persons reports. Each name was followed by a word remembered, forgotten, taken. At the center of the chamber was a chair, simple, wooden, and tied to it a mask made of bone. 2 days later, a shortwave radio transmission broadcast across 3 states. No known origin, but a familiar voice. Jared Fields. It's ending, or starting over. The choir doesn't sing anymore because we've all joined the song, and when enough of us stop humming, something wakes up. You have to choose, remember them, or become them. The FBI arranged a final interview with Emily under sedation, hoping to breach the wall of memory. She spoke slowly as if reading from somewhere far away. They were not evil, they were archivists. But their archive grew too full. They needed new shelves, so they used us. Gave us a memory, made us curators. But memory is heavy, too heavy, it sinks through time. The choir was never meant to be heard, only felt. It holds the shape of forgetting. I stayed to keep it sealed. But someone opened the shelves. Now the archive walks. September 19th. All communications at Mount Kalapuya ceased. Satellites lost lock. Drone footage froze. The final image broadcast from the mountain showed a mass of people walking single file through the forest. Some were robbed. Some wore graduation caps. Some looked straight into the camera. Their eyes were empty. And among them near the back, Jared Fields. Mouth closed, but the trees behind him vibrated. A song too low to hear, but just loud enough to feel in your spine. 2 months later, schools across Oregon began reporting strange phenomena. Missing yearbooks, blank class photos, students unable to remember former classmates' names, entire graduating classes with no archived digital record, only one note left behind tucked inside a locker. If no one remembers you, where do you go? Across the country, whispers grew. Campfires sparked stories of a girl with dark hair who walks between trees, of a boy with a camcorder asking questions no one wants to answer, of songs only the lost can hear. And some nights, deep in the woods, the trees still hum, softly, patiently, waiting for someone to forget. January 12th, 2022. A cold wind swept over the deserted campus of Forest Grove High. Surveillance footage caught at locker doors shuddering slightly in unison. No intruder, no quake, just motion timed perfectly with the moment a girl in homeroom 2B forgot her best friend's name. The next morning, a janitor found a single black feather stuck to the ceiling, and a notebook damp with frost resting on a windowsill. It contained one sentence repeated hundreds of times. "We remember so they don't have to." By February, reports came from 6 other states. Seniors missing from yearbooks, school newsletters with blank headlines, morning announcements that ended in static. In Montana, a teacher fainted after hearing the entire class hum the same low note during a test. They didn't acknowledge it, didn't remember it, but the audio recorder did. The note was identical to the one recorded beneath Mount Kalapuya, March 3rd. The Department of Homeland Security, now fully aware of the choir phenomenon, launched an internal task force, codenamed Silent Vault. Their mission: secure, contain, and erase sites of resonance, places that had begun to sing. They sealed off Kalapuya with armed surveillance. They sterilized the archive. But nothing silenced the hum. April 9th. A librarian in Salem, Oregon, discovered a small child alone in the reference section, quietly reciting names from old census books. The child claimed to be 8, but DNA showed no birth record, no parents, just a sequence that matched 17 missing children. When asked his name, the boy whispered, "I'm the replacement." In a secure psychiatric facility, Emily Tran, now under observation, drew only one thing: a tree, its roots tangled with bones, its branches holding faces, and atop it a circle of children arms linked. Below the tree, in delicate script, "So long as someone sings, we remain." That night, every CCTV feed in the hospital went dark for 46 seconds. When they returned, Emily was gone. In her place, a leaf, preserved, pressed, and humming. May 14th. A national TV station aired a clip from a recovered camcorder believed to belong to Jared Fields. No introduction, just 13 seconds of darkness and his voice. "We were never meant to leave, but you brought memory with you." And now the shelves collapse. That night the broadcast tower burned. No one was found inside. Only a cassette labeled "Return to Silence." In late June, an audio technician discovered a frequency embedded in digital silence, negative decibels. Not absence of sound, inverted sound. When played aloud, it caused light bulbs to flicker and dogs to howl. Some claimed to hear singing. Others claimed they saw someone standing in the reflection of their turned-off televisions. Always the same face. Emily's, July 25th. 1 year to the day since the original choir site was rediscovered. Every online memorial of the class of 1999 vanished from the internet. Every mention, every name, except one. A YouTube video posted anonymously titled, "They Sang So We Wouldn't Vanish." It contained 26 faces, laughter, a slow fade to static, and a final line. "Their memory is a melody. Sing it or silence takes all. It's 2 a.m. You're alone. The house creaks. You turn on the radio. Static, then a hum, then a soft voice, not yours, whispering a name you haven't heard in decades. You don't know why, but tears fill your eyes. Outside, the trees bend slightly, as if leaning in, listening, waiting, because somewhere someone forgot, and the choir never sleeps."